can see it.
Yeah, you can see it now.
It's it now, brilliant, it's it now.
Yeah.
It's, it sometimes does help to read as well as hear the words. I'm turning around to looking at myself, I'm seeing them. There we are. So this talk I've just prepared it today, really. It's about loneliness, social prescribing and wellbeing. I threw in the wellbeing part because that's I work in mental health. And actually I've just changed location and teams. So I used to work on the older people's mental health team. I used to be based at RPA. And now I'm based in Redfern, in the Redfern Community Centre. And my team is called the Towards Zero Suicides team, which is a new team. And it's only like 2 of us at the moment, and we'll be 3 people eventually. So here's my name and who I am and my phone number. So you've got my phone number and my address and my email. So I'm Jane Massa, I'm coordinator suicide depression prevention. My special field is working with older people. I'm part of Towards Zero Suicide program. I'm at Redfern. That's the new phone number I just learned today. So I literally moved in. I'm allowed in being in Redfern. Beautiful place. Okay. So my background is psychology, right? So I started off life as studying psychology and working as a counsellor, but this job I'm in now is not doing any counselling or anything like that. It's about prevention and education, because I feel like I'm doing tonight. Okay, so the first thing to say when thinking about mental health issues and health issues is that often problems are not a person's fault. Many things affect how healthy we are and how we're feeling, and not everything is within our control. So you might have heard of the expression social determinants. Well, actually, lots of people have. I talked to the chief executive today and the executive team, and they hadn't heard much about it. They didn't know what social prescribing was either. So, you know, what it is, what social determinants of health are saying that your health is shaped by the distribution of money, power, and resources. And those are the things that are responsible for inequality. Inequality is unfair and avoidable. And some of the social determinants of health include socioeconomic status, education, housing, transportation, food security, and psychosocial risk factors. And the next slide, I'm going to tell you the same thing again, maybe in different words. So our health is determined by the environment that we live in. So we need clean air, trees, nutritious food, shelter, and money. To thrive, we need joy, meaning, and relationships. And as human beings, we're social creatures. It's quite so important when we sing out to someone, we know someone's going to respond to us. You know, and when we feel it when our children go all over the world. And mine and me in Mexico. Okay, so while there are all these big things that we can't do to completely change and have total effect on, like the environment and pollution, all these things, there are things that are within our control. So there are things that we can do. And in the United Kingdom, they've summarised all these things that we have control that we can do. And I'm going to give them to you so that you know them. And they're summarised into 5 simple things, 5 ways to wellbeing. So if you can remember these 5 things, these are the 5 things that help you to have good wellbeing. I'm going to go through them one by one, and then I'll tell you them again at the end to check that you remember them. So the 5 ways to wellbeing are to connect, to be active, to take notice, to keep learning, and to give. So like they looked at all the research about what can a person do for their health and to live a long time. So, but just before that, just digressing a little bit here to give you a bit more perspective about what is mental health.
So you let context out of that list, but now you think context is important.
Yes, what's that, sorry?
You let context out of that list, but now you're saying context is important.
Context is important, that's right. Context is important.
I think it should be on that list too, because having a sense of your place in the world, the meaning you give to your life is very important.
So I agree, it's so true, so true. So just talking about mental health, do you think you could have a mental illness and have good mental health?
Obviously.
Yeah, why do you say what you think?
Let's just say I'm neurodiverse.
Right, yeah. That's true, isn't it? You could have mental health, you could have been diagnosed as having bipolar disorder, but you still might have good mental health because you might have it under control.
Yes, probably can pass as normal.
Yeah, what about the other way? Could you have no mental illness and have poor mental health?
Yes.
Yeah, how would you say that?
Because you haven't bothered to keep in contact with other people.
Yes, so you could be just doing nothing to look after your mental health.
That's right.
And you couldn't just have a glance out into my perspective.
It's
Yeah, so that's true. So here's some definitions of mental health. This one comes from United Kingdom. Mental health is the emotional and spiritual resilience which enables us to enjoy life, to survive pain, disappointment, and sadness. So that's one way of looking at it. Here's another way, an Aboriginal way of looking at mental health. Not just the physical well-being of the individual, but the social, emotional, and cultural well-being of the whole community. Just like what Nori was saying, context. Yeah, context is really important, isn't it? So I do love this Aboriginal definition. It's about a whole view of life, and it's the whole thing about the cycle of life and death is included in this, when you're thinking about things from an Aboriginal perspective.
What is the citation stand for?
Sorry.
In the previous slide, what is NAH?
Good question. Probably, I don't know, I can't remember what's the plan. Maybe National Aboriginal Health. Stuff I can find, I don't know, but I can get back to you with that.
Probably something
That's 1999.
Yeah, I can't recall where I got this from. I do know where I got this from. I got this from this federal government. Federal government was funding this whole organisation for the prevention of abortion since we had. But I can go to the manual and check what stands for.
health safety wellbeing program.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about these 5 ways of well-being, they've summarised, right? So the most important one is to connect, which is what you're all doing today and what you all do actually describe what you do. So with people around you, with family, friends, colleagues and neighbours, and through courses or in your local community. So you think of these connections as the cornerstones of your life and make time to develop them. Building these connections will support and enrich your life. So when you're trying to think about what's the research behind this, what difference do groups make? There's this fantastic study, which actually it's worth Googling if you want to. There's a TED talk on this by this fellow called Professor Robert Baldiner. And they run this longitudinal study at Harvard University. And they found that the single thing that predicted a happy and long life was warm social relationships. This is a really interesting study that's been going on for so long. So what they did is they took a group of men that were very poor, it was only men, right? The first study was only men, it's quite sexist times. They took one group of men were like really poor, like so poor they didn't have shoes, they didn't have hot water, they were really poor. And another group of men were quite wealthy. In fact, one of the men in the wealthy group was President Kennedy. And they looked at these men over time and they took blood samples from them, they x-rayed their brains, MRI scans of the brains. They asked questions and they just kept monitoring them all the time. And the rich guys just thought, well, that's normal, that every time people survey, people came back, they had to answer the questions. But the poor men were thinking, why don't you come back to asking questions for me? They couldn't understand why anyone was interested. But the interesting thing was that it wasn't the wealth that predicted the longevity of the people and health of people. It was the warm social relationships. So relationships have a more powerful influence on our health than wealth, success, fame, or cholesterol levels. So people are always telling you about don't smoke, or don't drink, and try not to have cholesterol, and all these things, which is all true, like good things, right? But they forget the most important thing, the really most important thing is relationships. And then there's been some more research by a professor called Professor Catherine Hasler from Queensland University and a team of people that works with her. And there's been some more research over the last 10 years all across the world. And what they have found is that joining a group halves your risk of dying in the following year by 50%. So the fact that you've all turned up to this group is fantastic. Who knew that? Like, that's pretty amazing, don't you think? Joining a group halves the chance of dying in the next year by 50%. And they found people who had depression.
I think we all learned that through COVID.
Yeah.
And that taught us how important it was for us to be
So
with other
true.
people because we couldn't be for long periods.
So true. Yes, and so people with depression, like many people with depression have relapses of depression. So over your lifetime, you might have, 2 or 3 relapses. But if you join a group and you have depression, it protects you about quite a lot against having a relapse. And more than one group protects you by eating more. And people, like there's different theories of why this might be the case. And I've read this book by Catherine Hassan, and she thinks it's because different groups give you different social identities and make that she thinks that's very good for you mentally. But anyway, it's just really, really good point. This, because of this, right, I run a group. So I run groups called social connections groups. This is one of the groups I ran that became a social tennis group. There's this famous tennis player, Louise Fleming, and she's created this organisation called Rally Forever. You know that one? Rally, there's an ABC Australian story on the program, and basically, but it's about giving people tennis. But the idea is that social tennis brings people together. So you can do social tennis at Camden, and you can also do it at Ashfield. And this is a group I ran at Ashfield. There's a guy there with the white hair. Nick, before he joined the group, he was feeling quite depressed. His wife died. She was Aboriginal. He was the carer for her. And he was thinking he had a bit of a problem speaking with speech. And he felt so lonely. But since this social connections group, he's really blossomed. So, you know, he's playing tennis, he's doing something every day, he's talking to people in the street, he's playing ping pong at the Newtown Neighbourhood Centre. I ran into him just this last week and he told me how he's going, you know. So part of my work, one thing I'm trying to do is actually foster people's social connections. But moving on to those things, from how we could say, okay, connect. The next thing to do is be active. And 5 ways to work wellbeing, when they try to summarise all the research about what works. Being active is really important. So you can dance, go for a walk, do Tai Chi, step outside, cycle, play a game, swim. Exercise that makes you feel good. And if you do something you enjoy, you might stick with it more. Any exercise is better than no exercise. The more you do, the greater the benefit. And if you make it fun, that helps. And it's a good idea to do it regularly and if possible outside. The biggest difference for exercise, for people who go from no exercise to doing a little bit, that's the biggest, that's what makes the biggest difference. But for if you're already exercising, then the thing to do is make it a bit hard. So say your exercise is going for a walk, try and include a steep hill. Just do a little bit and make it a little bit. You can't avoid steep. You have to have steep hills, you're very good, yes. Great, but I'm so happy that I'm here because just being here makes me do exercise more because I have to walk to the station and to get to, and then walk from Redfern to not that far, but it's a little bit of walking. Yeah, I
have to walk up a hill to get down.
Yeah. If you want to help with any of these things, there's a free service that the Sydney Local Health District has called the Get Healthy Coaching Service. And this is a service that's Monday to Friday, 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 at night. And you get a counsellor who brings you up. But supposing you say, well, I do want to exercise, but I just want someone to ring up and say how you're going to motivate. It's like a bit of a coach, right? Or if you want to change your diet, say they'll help you with whatever you want to do. So just good to know. And then got this other program called Healthy and Active for Life Online. Okay. So the third thing is, remember we have connect, the second thing was exercise. The third thing is take notice. Be curious, catch signs of beautiful, talk about unusual things, notice the changing seasons, enjoy the moments when you're walking to the shops or eating lunch or talking to a friend. So this idea of taking notice is something that lots of older cultures already have in them. For example, Danzeri is the inner deep listening, quiet, still awareness that Aboriginal Australia has. We can do a little tiny bit of a practice just now about this take notice thing. If you just put your hands together, breathing deeply, and just try and close your eyes and just think of something nice that you've noticed today. So on my way to work, I noticed a rose and I stopped to smell. So I missed the first train, but I thought it was work. Anybody else got anything they want to tell us that they saw? They noticed.
Flowers are pretty.
Flowers, yeah. Anyone else notice? Birds probably.
I spent some time watching a little bird echo onto the thing that the hot water heaters are in, the side of the building they're grating. I'm holding on, yes, it was quite fun.
This is spectacular. Noticing like these things, like, you know how spring is here, so you notice blossoms, the smell of flowers.
Yeah, you also sneeze.
Yeah, it's true. I do that, I've got hay fever myself. So be aware of the world around you, what you're feeling. Reflecting on your experiences will help you appreciate what makes you. Okay, the next thing on these 5 ways for being is keep learning, which is what we're doing tonight. Learning new things will make you more confident, as well as being fun. Keep learning, try something new, rediscover an interest, sign up for a course, volunteer. Volunteering has been found to make people very happy. Fix a bike, learn to play an instrument, or how to cook your favourite food. Set new challenges. And the last thing on this 5 ways for me is to give. So do something nice for a friend or a stranger. Thank someone, smile, volunteer time, join a community group or cause, look out as well as in. You know, because as human beings, we need purpose, and giving lights up parts of your brain that make you feel happy. So people that give to charity are happier than people that don't, you know? Seeing yourself and your happiness is linked to the wider community can be incredibly rewarding and create connection with people and with you. So just summarising them again, do you remember these 5 ways, the 5 things they said you need to do for your mental health and physical health? I'll just give you again. Connect, be active, take notice, keep learning, and give. So, moving on from that, talking more about the social prescription and loneliness like things that I've been asked to talk about tonight. The important thing to think and to know is that we human beings are herd animals. But it's getting harder to connect to other human beings. Loneliness is increasing, and we know that loneliness is bad for your health, smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So how come it's just the case? Like, why do you think it's getting harder to connect? Like, it's getting harder. There's people thinking, yes.
Technology.
Technology, yes. Everybody's looking at their phone, aren't they? Instead of looking at each other.
Class war,
Yeah.
young people can't afford to go out partying and socialising and filling up pubs. So the pubs are there for the older people there.
Yes.
So, yeah, the way that people are working 3 jobs to pay the rent, whereas
Yes.
40 years ago, you worked 1 job, your rent was paid, you went partying,
This is so true.
socialising.
This is a good point. Yeah, and Catherine has some points out that Professor in Queensland that money affects how much you can socialise.
Yeah, the people with money,
Yeah.
their wealth is like quadrupled in the last 20 years, well, that comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it comes from mostly young people, because older people that have got houses, they're right. The young people starting out in life, they can't afford to socialise and do things that aren't bringing in money, or they cost money.
This is good points. I don't know Human Cape, if anyone heard of Human Cape, and he's a social researcher. And he's written lots of books about this, and done lots of for the Australian government, he surveyed the population quite a lot and asked, and he's come up with these reasons about why he thinks that loneliness is increasing. So he says there's various things, a lot of things, some things that we already said. Shrinking households. So there's more people now living by themselves than previously. Fractured relationships, there's more marriages ending in divorce. Like, sometimes this is a good thing, right? Because you're not putting up with domestic violence, perhaps. But on the other hand, these are just all things that make it easier to be lonely. Falling birth rates, because children are social lubricants. You know, when you've got children playing, then you just, you know, they make you make parents, don't they?
Children and dogs.
Yes, well, that's what human cases is dogs have become the children. So he said you find dogs nowadays and you say what the dog's name, it'd be something like Ray. Increased mobility, so people move in house quite often. So when you stay in the same place, like some of you have, That's fantastic for knowing people and having deep roots in your community. But when people have to keep moving and, you know, fly in, fly out jobs and stuff like this, that makes it harder. It's lonelier. Car ownership, because when you're in a car, you're not having those incidental encounters. So it's really good when you've got, like, Redfern's pretty good because you've got lots of pedestrian stuff, don't you? So you're meeting people on the street. But some places, like, I have a friend who lives in Metro. This is really hard because everything's cars. You just, it's the car runs the whole place is organised around a car. It's not very good for human beings. Elevating busyness to a social glitch. So nowadays it's like everyone has to start so busy. And human cases, even people who are retired said, oh, I don't know how time to work. And he says this is the real enemy of social cohesion. Like being busy and being boastful about being busy and thinking busyness is so important is really bad for increasing people's loneliness. And then he says, the thing which you said, which is that falling for the idea that connection via technology is like face-to-face. Because it's not. Eye contact is essential for human interaction. So, you know, people say, oh, it doesn't matter that I can't see the children, I FaceTime them. Well, you know, it is good to do connection. It's good. Any connection is better than no connection. But human beings, it's really good for us to have face-to-face. It's really lovely. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad you're saying let's do this like this rather than as a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting. I think face-to-face is something human beings really crave. Okay, so moving on from loneliness and how it's increasing. One of the, it's a good way you said that there's only one element, but one thing people can do to try and reduce loneliness is social prescribing. And what that means is it's an approach that connects people to activities, groups, and services in their community to meet practical, social, and emotional needs that affect their health and well-being. So the idea is that instead of a doctor just prescribing pills, they prescribe other things that can help us to not be lonely, other things that give us a sense of purpose, other things that give us a reason to live. You know, rather than just thinking only medication is the answer to all our problems. So this idea of social prescribing started in England. And there, everyone can access social prescribing through their GP. So you can't see that because of the but anyone can go to their doctor and access social prescribing. And they employ these people who are called link workers. Sometimes they might be called navigators, but mostly in England they're called link workers. And the people are referred to the link worker by anyone. Like lots of services can refer you to the link worker, not just the doctor. You could be referred by housing, by pharmacies, health workers, and by hospital discharge planners. So glad you're leaving hospital, they'll refer you to the link worker to figure out how to see when you get out of hospital. So when people are doing social prescribing, instead of asking the question, what's the matter? The link worker is asking the question, what matters to you? It's a different perspective, right? Different way of looking at people. So, in England, they were the first nation to have a minister for loneliness. They have a minister for loneliness. And social prescribing is often done by the link worker, whose job is to listen to the patient, understand what matters, and connect them to community activities. One of the first link workers, her name is Gay Palmer. She said it's not about going to Google that helps, but walking around a neighbourhood and understanding the community. So that's what I did today. I walked around the neighbourhood to try and understand the community. To try and find out what's available here. And you might already know this because you've been here for a long time, but being new, I didn't know what was here. I didn't know all the things that were here. So there's a few things that are here. Actually, some of them you might not know, like head to health, that's a fairly recent invention. So this is the government's way of trying to get everybody to be able to access mental health services. Council services. I've talked to Jessica Mayer. Do you all know Jessica Mayer? She's marvellous, older people's community development officer. She works for the City Council, so she's given me all this stuff. And there's also an organisation, which is another new one actually, that I've only just learned about myself recently, called LIPA. So I'll go through all these services a bit more to tell you more about them. So liver, this is this one. But it's fantastic, right? It's a federal government thing. And it's about how can you stay independent? They've done this research and they figured out that one of the, how do you know when you're not getting independent? Well, one of the key things is that you can't cut your toenails anymore. And then like, you get various things, things can become harder and harder until at the end stage, you can't feed yourself. You know, so the idea is to not get to that stage and to do what you can to be independent. So they've got this program where you get to, I've done it myself. You go online and do the quiz, or you can actually talk to someone. You can bring up and have someone talk to you in person or on the phone. There we go. And they if you do the quiz, it's quite good. It comes up with all the things that you might like that the quiz finds you might be interested in. So I did the quiz. And they said, I thought to myself, I was going, this is probably not going to be any good. But it turned out to be really good. So they said, yes, what you could do, from my case, would be I could volunteer at the Newtown Feminist Library. It wasn't Newtown, but I read there was such a thing. And it's all run by volunteers. So I can do the quiz or talk to someone. So this is and the other thing they have, apart from like groups you can join, they also have gadgets, like gadgets to help you open a tin or, whatever it is, like gadgets to help you to keep your independence. So this is a really good service to know about. And the person that runs this, one of the people that runs this service, can come talk to groups as well sometimes, but she covers the whole of Australia, so it's something difficult, but she could go by things perhaps if you wanted to. Okay. There are around Redfern, they're all around the Sydney, around the city of Sydney. There are all these fantastic community centres. Has anyone ever been to the Redfern Community Centre? So I went there for the first time in my life today and got inspiration from them. What's on a Redfern Community Centre? And the stuff has got fantastic things. You can go to singing lessons. If you're an Indigenous person, you can go in their choir. They have a whole service telling you about what career opportunities there are, what jobs people can apply for. I brought the brochure, so this is what's on there. Then there's the Ron Williams Community Centre. Has anyone been there? Yeah. How did you find it?
I've not been there much lately.
Right.
I used to go sometimes with the group.
Yeah.
I was involved in volunteering before I decided to try and smash my shoulders.
Oh, this is brochures about that, and this is what's on there at the moment. So they've got this. I know, for example, one of the programs is Living Longer, Living Stronger. This is a really good program. It's about building your muscle, and we know that that's really important because being able to go from sitting to standing, not being able to do that is one of the key reasons why we can end up in nursing homes. When you can't do sit to stand, this is a problem. So they do this. They've got this fantastic Living Longer, Stronger exercise program, which costs $5 a class. But they have free things too, like knitting, yoga, haircuts for free. Really, lots of interesting things, groups. So, and it's not far away really. Like, where is it? Where is that one?
That's in Redfern.
Yeah.
I was in Redfern.
Yeah. Keppel Street.
Keppel Street.
Yeah.
So this is what's on there, right? That's kids. Then there's the Cliff Noble Centre. This one, this is the brochure about this. Everybody can come take these, take them, I'll leave them all here. And this is what's on, this is the brochure, and this is underneath each brochure, I've got the latest of what's on, which Jessica, this lady, Jessica Mayer, who works for the City of Sydney Council, gave me all this stuff. So Cliff Noble Centre. They've got a social arts and crafts group, home library service. They've got the Living Stronger program as well, like because it's easier for you to get the exercise program there. Therapy, and sing along, that's every week. Rap with Nub knitting group, accessible yoga, creative writing class, and they're going to be to children like pasta night, 13 to 18-year-olds. So it's really, really good. Then there's the St Helens. Have anyone been to St Helens? Yeah. What did you do there?
I used to go there every Monday, Tuesday mornings to volunteer on a bus that went around picking up seniors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, neighbours. It's an offshoot of the Junction Neighbourhood Centre.
Right, that's on Glen Point Road, the main road, of Glen.
And it's just where the 370 terminates these days.
Perfect, so you must go to the door.
Huh? Yeah, if you want to go any further on, you have to go on a link bus that goes round and round.
So they've got fantastic things. They've got meditating league, table tennis, monthly trivia, ways to save, government rebates and vouchers. You can go and talk about that. Zumba gold, yoga, sewing and mending workshop, living longer, living stronger. Again, they all got the living longer, living stronger, which is really good. They're having a men's physical fitness day that's coming up on the 17th of October. And that's going to have African drumming. Community morning tea with a German theme. They have things for mothers and babies and things for newspapers. What were you going to say? Nothing. No, but that's good. So these are really good things to know about. Really good groups to join if you're not going. Then the other thing that's brand new that I've only just found out about myself is this brochure, which is the older person's wellbeing network. So, you know how I work in Sydney Local Health District, which is like the New South Wales government running health things. Then there's the federal government also runs health stuff, and the federal government's in charge of all the doctors. And they have this, the federal government has divided up New South Wales and the country into these what they call primary healthcare networks. So we here in Redfern, we're under the Central and Eastern Primary Healthcare Network. And they fund this old person's wellbeing network, which is run by Anglicare. And what this offers is free counselling, support groups, workshops, peer support, training, wellbeing network meetings. So Catherine Lloyd is the contact person, and her name and phone number is on the brochure. So if you want any of these things, it's good to know this is a brand new service. What if you can't get out there? What if you can't actually physically get to a place? So is it okay? People say, is it okay if I just talk to my children online? Like I'm just talking to my daughter on text messaging, or if she's in Mexico. I don't even see her like once talking on, phone. So yes, the research is yes, it's definitely worth doing talking online or talking on the phone. It's about 50% as effective as meeting face to face, but it's still good, right? So if you can't get out, you might like to join this group, which is a group that I started during COVID. Remember how we talked about COVID and how terrible it was, and people couldn't go out. So at that stage, I was running groups online for other people. In one of my groups was Marie Christine Sancho, whose name's up there. And she said to me, she had a problem with her immune system. So her doctor was saying, you can't go out at all. It's just way too dangerous. And the groups I was running were just 8-week groups. She said to me, I don't know if I can survive without the fruit chain. I just, live for it like it's a once a week thing. So I said to her, well, I can help you keep it going. So she has kept it going. So like a couple of years later, she's still got this group going. She welcomes anyone to join it. And it's on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. So if you want to, you can join this very nice group of people. A small, happy group of older Australians. They meet on Zoom. And the Zoom account's paid for by, I'm on this other group myself called the Inner West Suicide Prevention Collaborative, and it's been given some money by the federal government, by the Public Healthcare Network, and they pay for the Zoom account. So it's not very much money at all. But so if you want to go online, you can, and they sometimes also meet in person, because she's sometimes they have meet for coffee or something like that, or they go to the rocks, or some, so occasionally have a face-to-face thing. But it's nice if you can't get out of the house to have a group. And if you just want to add to the amount of groups to read, the more groups to read, the better. This is a really easy one to be. So my take-home message is Social interactions are the key to living a longer, healthier life. Try to have social interactions in your week, no matter how small. So even there, this is the other interesting thing, right? The research is saying it is really good to have someone you can confide in. But even if you don't have really deep relationships, just going out of the house and talking to 5 people a day will improve your mood. And even if this is just like someone you buy something at shops from, someone who's just waving the street, the bus driver, you know, they don't have to be deep things, just really small interactions, really ordinary interactions are really, really good. So even if you just phone someone up, send a text message, this is really good. And we are all each other's support network.
When you go to the shops, refuse to do your own cashiers.
I always some countries, that like where is this? In the Netherlands, they have now a slow lane on purpose. So like one supermarket has made, they own 700 supermarkets or something. They've got this slow lane on purpose so people can spend their time talking to the cashier, have a conversation. Like we had that. Like all this horrible trying to get people to do it all themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking to another.
And they don't open the cashier person there that they try to force everybody through the machine.
Yes.
I'm saving money.
Yes. I've never gone there.
Yeah.
I'll prove them. Yeah.
You can get someone to come to the self-checkouts and just make a mistake.
But I found that
Yeah.
quite a few older people have woken up with that. So if you keep building the line for the person who is actually there, and open another slot.
Yeah.
Naughty, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it for my talking.
So, I mean, just on the, each other's support networks, which is where you've finished there, I guess, one of the stories that I remember, a community nurse who came to a groundswell training session sort of 10 or 12 years ago, and her concern was that she was trying to get an older person living in public housing to actually get some exercise and walk. And they didn't want to go outside their door and walk because they were scared about walking up and down the corridor and what might happen to them. So there's a very simple exercise where that sort of just keeping mobility is really important,
Yeah.
potentially for interaction.
That's we used to have an exercise physiologist back when I worked at the RPA, and he said that the most important thing for exercise is to have confidence, to feel safe. And the thing that stops people exercising is just what you said, not feeling safe.
Yeah.
Or it hurts.
Or it hurts.
I wanted to ask more about how someone could go to a GP and ask for the link.
Oh, that's in England, so not here.
So not here.
Not here. I'm saying,
So we don't have advice for someone here to link them up with those services.
So yes, there is so maybe
Because I've got a friend that is public housing and is always complaining about not having any social life at all, apart from hanging with the neighbours.
Yeah.
And I wish I had more tools to help them with.
So I've put together because in preparing for today, I've spoken to many people in different organisations and sort of got a bit of a broad overview, some of which we mentioned and some of which have. I put together a sheet I'll pass it around. But one of the things I discovered in that is that the PHN is actually funding a social prescription provider in.
So what's the PHN again?
where?
The PHN.
Primary health.
Yeah.
And who and where?
Who and where?
Yeah.
So it's been provided through primary and community care services.
Right.
And it's basically, so there's a couple of things that they're doing. One is that they do the social prescription side of stuff, which can be done through the GP. So they've got a flyer on their website that you can sort of print off and take to the GP and say, I want you to refer to this.
Right.
Okay. But they also have a couple of other services which are interesting. And I suppose it's interesting because loneliness isn't just something for older people.
No,
Right?
young people are more likely to help.
Yes. So they've also got what they call a Coach Plus program, which is basically no referral is needed and you can get assistance, and they have activities and stuff that people can become involved in and help you work through issues. And they're also one of the head to health regional providers.
Right.
So they've got sort of connections in through that.
And do you have a sense how it's working? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
Sorry?
how well it's working. The primary and community care service social prescriptions.
So, they think they're doing well. I've got no way of assessing that.
You can go and get a piece of paper off the website to say
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you go to the
Yes.
PCCS website.
Yeah.
They've got their various programs. You can go to social prescription. And they have on there, so that's in their case, social RX is how it's written. I've written it in the same way as they have it on the program. And
Sometimes they just write prescription instead of making it.
so to give you,
Yeah.
I mean, I have,
It's
my colour print doesn't work
jargon,
very well, so
it's not plain
Um,
English.
so there's a little bit of stuff about social prescription, and there's some examples of form that they ask doctors to fill in. There's a couple of things there you can have a look at and pass around. And they also have some other activities. So I just wanted to go through a couple of these things in terms of, there's an organisation called Ending Loneliness Together, which focuses very much on the loneliness question. Got a whole pile of academic sort of background, brings together research and has some sort of general resources. So if you're looking for some of the information that was used in tonight's talk in terms of the evidence base, you'll find that there. Liver has already been talked about, which is a focus for older people and loneliness. The other one is the Social Prescribing Institute, Aspire. There was a speaker at the local recent local community services conference where they were talking about that. Their focus is very much trying to get the sort of social prescription that they have in the UK introduced throughout Australia. And that's basically their push. Again, it's sort of an academic base, so there's a lot of material on what actually social prescription is and how it works. One of the challenges in social prescription is that you can have somebody who has a need and has an interest, but how then do you link them up with an activity that they're going to be interested in? And a lot of our sort of databases for doing that aren't very good in Australia. That's where the link workers come in who have a good knowledge of what's on the ground, which we don't have here. Many of the activities that happen in communities, people aren't aware of. And community centres in particular, places like this are quite often aware of activities that have been put on by a number of other people around the place. So for many people, involvement in if they're religious in a church bit or in an art group or into a walking group or all these sort of things, you can have the activities, but then you have to try and link them up. That's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is actually doing that for services that don't cost an arm and a leg. So in the UK, I think there's actually a limit that they actually put on in terms of what they use for social prescription, where if something's going to cost a large amount, then they're not included in the databases. Only if it's going to cost them a couple of bucks or a couple of pounds or whatever that they actually put them into the database, but that's a real challenge of how you do that.
Yeah, and one of the things the UK does, like I've seen, when I go out training, is that they have, instead of doing Meals on Wheels where people all get individual meals to their house, they have, you go and have meals together with other people. So it's like a group meal.
Yep.
You know, it's a good idea, isn't it?
Organisations that do that, yeah,
We do, yeah,
yeah, but I've lost contact where they are now,
but there are,
yeah. But I've lost contact.
yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? Like, I think that's nice. And the other thing- Sorry,
That is mainly they do it for mental health things,
right,
their groups.
It's
Yeah.
one of the things we were talking about earlier on is to what extent should be this within health? And to what extent is it a general community sort of issue? So the City of Sydney have their activity programs that's aimed out of the general community. And there was a forum last year that Sylvie Bellsmore put on that was looking at loneliness. That report is not yet out, but I'm told will be around relatively soon. You've got centres like this that are putting on activities for people within the local the community. The problem, however, is that most of the GPs that are in Redfern would know nothing about any of these activities. So
yeah,
how do you actually link that together?
Yeah.
That's the real challenge. And potentially, that may be an area where the City of Sydney can help. The City of Sydney was running a database on the links system where it was listing resident groups and community activities and environment groups and various things like that. And that stopped within the last couple of years. But that's the sort of place where you would expect that people could go and find stuff in terms of being involved in groups and activities. In the same sort of way in terms of just getting out and having a look at what's there on the what's on section. Lots of activities always on in the city, but people don't necessarily find those things. So
you
that's the
can tell these people too, like, you can tell these, like, if you do know something that's on, like, you know, you can tell these people, they will add it to their database. Like, these people, yeah, sorry.
I have a few things to say. The first one is, you mentioned the study, that Robert Waldinger did. I had a look at the study, it's 70, not 75 years, and the number 10 on the 11 author list. I wonder, why did you mention that first?
I just think it's a really, sorry, that's wrong.
Because normally the author list is organized by the contribution to the paper, so.
I just think the most fascinating study, because it really shows the power of relationships being important. I think it's really uplifting because it's saying that it's not being wealthy, that's the key to how long, to a long life. It's being having more relationships actually.
Sure, I get that, but I'm asking though, why did you mention the 10th author out of 11 authors on the author list?
The 10th author,
Yes.
all the other authors.
Yes, because the order is ranked by how much they contributed to your work.
I think just because he's the Robert Waldinger,
Yeah.
just because he's the current person who's currently looking after the study, so everybody has a turn looking after it, and he looked up the current one.
Okay.
I was going to say, he was doing a 70-year study. Did he start when he was 5?
No, so he's inherited it from other people. And now they actually looking at for women and children, like the wives and children as well, who weren't doing before.
So you mentioned the 5 Ps to wellbeing. What's your source for that? You said that there were studies in support of that.
Of which one?
Of the 5 Ps that you mentioned.
The 5 ways will be.
Yeah.
So this is based on some stuff from the, I can, you know, perhaps the best thing will be is if you email me and I can give you the, where the stuff comes from.
Like I can do that.
Yeah.
And one of the slides you had, I don't remember the person you listed, but you said eye contact is the essential ingredient in human interaction. To me, that sounded like a symptom of the double empathy problem. I've seen a lot of that restated in like mind blindness research, you know, Barry Cohen, that's very controversial.
Yeah.
And then you've got like more mainstream views that also incorporate the role of eye contact and social interaction. I think that's a very controversial thing.
That's a good point. And my own manager did say to me that she doesn't like that aspect because her partner is neurodiverse and doesn't like eye contact. So that is a good
The important thing is to be backed up by evidence.
Yeah.
When you make claims like this.
true. This is, I'm just starting here, okay, this research.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. and you're right, you know?
And it's important to say, when you say we're herd animals, that doesn't mean we all run the right way.
Yeah.
10% of us are left-handed. There's a reason for diversity even with herds.
Yes, right.
So, and for some people eye contact's great, others not.
And all these things are like not black and white, are they? Because some people, for example, like monks, might go off into a cave and be by themselves forever and be happy with that. So, you know, it's true, like this, but it's not like it's the gospel on. Yeah, it's good to be critical of the awareness of it. Exactly why I'm saying that.
Infinite diversity, as Jean Roddenberry says.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, so on the 3rd of October, the NDIS officially started legislation for getting the NDIS back on track by 2024, which went through a few phases, and it's a very controversial piece of legislation. It was marketed as being a milestone in the progression towards getting people disabled lives better. I looked at the legislation myself. I saw this. I don't believe the claims, because the legislation itself, it restricts funding access, and it makes it easier for people to lose access to the program. And the primary goal of the funding, as later stated by one of the politicians, was to reduce the funding in addition to an 8% yearly funding limits on how much the cap can grow, because it is currently the world's biggest expenditure on any disability program in the world. And all the outcomes that have been assessed have been extremely poor. And the NDIS, by its very existence, has also reduced funding in state and federal areas of mental health and disability support, including the programs that you work in, Towards Zero program, which I'm sure would have gotten more funding if the NDIS was not so, because the money, it's a zero-sum government policy. So, I've looked at the new legislation that's proposed for this. I think it is something that would likely affect your work. This new legislation is designed to help participants. And it's unlikely that states and governments will go back to refunding things that they have defunded in order to just, avoid accountability, I guess. So, I saw in this referral program you had that you were handing out, it had one of the checkboxes for NDIS, and of course I can understand this decision, but the vast majority of the money that's going to mental health and disability support is going into this giant bureaucracy, and your work is getting the trickles of it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, with the NDIS, I was listening to down the radio and I was saying that the problem is too that people aren't going to be able to use the money for their accommodation. And so that means that people that, the whole joy of the whole thing was to have people not being institutionalised accommodation. So that's going to be difficult for people.
Yes.
And I know one of my very good friend lives in Mandurah, her daughter is severely disabled, and I know that there some terrible people operating the schemes, there's been, actually, I think it's true that there's been some rip-offs and some bad.
There was a claim that as much as 20% of the funding was going towards crime syndicates.
Yeah, bad, yeah, I think there's definitely a good idea to try and stop some of the laws, but like, for instance, we're not very good. But that's just my one, I'm no expert on this at all. But I think you've got good points. Yeah.
One of the other things that you mentioned briefly is head to health. And I think that's the important thing for us to know about, because in the discussions we've had in the mental health space, we've had the PHN working with doctors in terms of at that primary level. And then you've had the sort of acute level being handled by Sydney Local Health. But we know there are not enough people on the mental health teams to actually deal with the level of issues in this area. And there's been this question about what do you do in this middle part of that for people that sort of aren't acute enough to be dealt with by the limited resources of the Sydney Local Health District, but then also can't be or aren't being dealt with properly by their local GP. And this is where I think something like Head to Health can fill a gap that's there within the system. And it basically is a sort of a triaging type service where you can ring up and you can sort of say, look, I've got anxiety issues around various bits and pieces, and I'm not quite sure how I can get support for that. And they'll sort of talk you through, and you know, you can spend up to an hour going through that sort of process, and then out of that, they actually make some suggestions for where you should go. They might be the social prescription sort of direction, or they might be in terms of here's a particular service that deals with the issue that you're presenting with. It's not aimed for people that are already in the acute part of the system, but it's a good middle ground for people who have sort of wellbeing concerns that they can actually go through that sort of process.
It seems to be to make mental health more accessible, because it's not very accessible.
It's not better than it was.
Yeah. Well, true. Yeah, that's a good point. The mental health does seem to be a good idea. And you can, everyone knows, I don't know if you all know this, but everyone can see a psychologist. You know, you can get 10 sessions seeing a psychologist under a mental health plan for your GP, and that's subsidised. That's good to know. And the head health, I think, is also aimed at, even though it's subsidised, it's not free. So it's often not free, like if the pay is, you know, difference between what the government pays and what the psychologist charges. I think the head health is also aimed at making it free.
Yep.
Making sure that everybody can see a psychologist for free.
Yep. The other thing that I think also was useful in the research I was doing and talking to people for this, we've talked about a couple of services that were funded by the PHN. I've given you a link in for the Central and Eastern Sydney PHN, which actually is a link to mental health services funded by CES PHN. It will show you the sort of things that your doctor can actually, what services they can access or you can access through your doctor, in some cases with a referral, some cases not. So some of these are ones we've talked about today. But if you're looking for supports for someone or wanting to find out what you can access, that's a good list to look to, because it's likely that your doctor doesn't know about half that stuff. So that's another thing. So hopefully that's just pulling together some of the stuff that I picked up in those conversations. So any other questions that people have?
How do you plan to incorporate evidence-based research into your practice?
That's why
Is it like towards your program as part of that?
I'm only just going towards their own like program, so I'm not expert. I've only been in it for like a week, but I think that's a really good question. For myself, like in groups I run, for example, the social connections groups I run, I get people to do a before and after questionnaire. It's called the depression and anxiety scale. So I get them to do this at the start, before they start the group, and then I get asked to do it at the end. And I analyse what the difference is. And I'm going to be presenting this at the next Allied Health Research Conference about what I found the difference is, which was that people did actually reduce their anxiety and reduce their depression.
So,
So that's what about folks was there. So it's a really good point. Like, I'm not exactly certain how they're going to measure it.
well, I'll point out two factors which I've found often confounding in social science research.
Yes.
The first is you can't conduct double-blind trials the same way that you can with medications.
True.
And the second is, this is globally and throughout all time periods, suicide statistics are widely underreported in every government. that you go
That's
to.
true.
And this greatly limits the capacity for analysis and drawing causation is very difficult.
It's so true. I totally agree with you. And you know what, like the whole time I've been working in this field, so I haven't been working towards zero suicides for very long, but I've worked in suicide prevention for 10 years. And what I think that's interesting is that all across the world, for older people, they don't know, suicides are going up, except for one country. They're not going up in England. And nobody knows the reason, but the hypothesis for the reason why this is the case is because people in England, older people in England are more equal to the rest of the population. So they're socially more equal and financially more equal to everybody else. So they have like free public transport, they get help with their heating. And so they have these things that make them more equal, and that seems to be the reason why suicides in that group are actually not going up and declining. But it's a really good question because we keep on doing things, and it's very hard to measure, but it's no excuse to not try all this at once. So, and it would be really good to be thinking about why is England the one country in the world where rates going down from.
This question,
Sorry, Adam, yes.
Hello, sorry, it took me ages to figure out how to raise a hand. I haven't used Zoom in a very long time. Look, it's been a fantastic. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, is this coming?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome conversation tonight. I don't know if this is a question or a comment, so let's just see where it lands. But I'm particularly interested in the experience of loneliness and social isolation in social housing estates and communities. And, you know, we know that social housing residents are at a higher risk of, you know, experiencing loneliness and social isolation by virtue of, you know, the characteristics that make someone more prone to, you know, loneliness and social isolation. And that is, you know, physical disability, that could be, or mental health, you know, culturally and linguistically diverse. So, you know, if you don't speak English and you have a physical disability, that would certainly make you at a higher risk. You know, and I think compounded is, you know, real perceived, you know, safety and how that may make tenants in social housing communities reluctant to engage in community activities. You know, and even this, how public housing is less these days, but it has, you know, historically been stigmatized, at least in the last, you know, 20 or 30 years or so. And so, you know, residents' identification with community, their neighbors and staff, you know, might not be as strong by virtue of that stigmatization. So yeah, I guess I'm just keen to kind of hear what people's thoughts are around those kind of issues in social housing, and what are some interventions that might be possible, and you know, is safety, you know, from your experience, you know, your personal experience or your engagement with neighbours, is do you think that would be a fair conclusion to reach? You know, that safety does kind of stop people from getting out and engaging in community.
Same for you, like safety guards.
Do you think that safety is stopping people's sense of being not safe? Do you think that's stopping them from getting out and meeting people, being less lonely? And do you think people are self-stigmatizing, you know, about social housing perhaps as well? And that's causing a problem.
Well, it doesn't help that our local MP says that this place should be knocked down because it's a failed social experiment. So we just have to remember, he's not brilliant. Go to his office, he's got pictures of himself all over the place. He doesn't care about the community. There's no pictures of community in his office.
That's good advice.
I really think it's a mixed bag. You know, the 10 units, for instance, or 20, whatever on my floor, everyone is different. Every single person is different to the other.
Can't generalise.
Can't generalise at all. And I'm not even vaguely lonely, but you know, I don't think I ever would be, but I talk to everyone. I never shut up, but some people don't talk, and then they wonder why they're lonely. But I say hello to everyone in the lift, and only one person in 10 says hello back to me in my building. They just look at me as though I'm mad. What is wrong with this person? He just said hello.
Yeah.
Now, you know, what do you do with people like that?
It's quite hard, isn't it?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a bit like Peter, I talk to everybody.
And getting away is a big problem for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I only, yesterday actually met a new neighbour who I knew this flat had been vacant, but she's moved in when I've been on the missing list. So I was away for a while. But,
Yeah.
I had a talk with her and settled her down slightly.
Mm.
She was just, going, I don't know, they move people in, they forget to tell them there's redevelopment going on. Then they get the wrong end of the stick. And something nobody's mentioned here is the community transport, which is helpful for those people who are a bit isolated.
Yeah.
Or have trouble getting
So
using
important.
public transport.
And there are people who are just scared of everything.
And then there's,
Yeah.
Well, I've met quite a few,
Yeah.
women particularly who just say that I go out after dark. And I understand that in a way, but you know, it's like 5 o'clock in winter.
Yeah.
You know, it's so,
Yeah.
there's no out to dinner or anything like that. It's,
Yeah. It's a bit limited.
yeah, but I don't know what you can do about that except have lots more things open at night.
Lights, I guess lights, like physical smoking that space, smoking that light, as you said, like having big lights good. Like, and if something's busy, it feels safer. It's one of the isolated, it feels dangerous, isn't it? Yeah.
I learned very quickly how difficult what would be to be friendly to people because there was a young Aboriginal girl living in a flat not far from me. And she had a baby and there was, I don't think her husband was in jail or something, I'm not too sure. But I said hello to her and she looked at me and she said, my mother told me never to speak to strangers.
Right.
That was my first attempt to be friendly to someone. It
Yeah.
didn't stop me. I just, I just kept going, but I mean,
Yeah.
I thought, heaven, you know.
That's true, like, my father said that, but he's from Egypt, and his mother was so, like, antisocial, he'd say, if someone comes to the door and knocks the door, you say hello, and then you close the door. No, it's a policy, like, you close the door. So, yeah, so, people different.
One woman actually
Yeah.
did speak to me and she said, are you Russian? And I said, no, and she's never spoken to me since.
Maybe she's looking for a Russian speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do like to carry on the conversation, you don't speak Russian.
It is because.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of the thing, I guess, is that you have a very diverse community.
Yes.
And you've got, I mean, I've heard it here, it said, you know, that there are programs for older people, there are programs for kids. But who's looking after the middle-aged men that are coming into public housing?
And particularly with the allocations policy they have now.
Yeah.
What's the policy? What's the policy?
That's no policy at all, really.
You have to have a very high need to get on the priority. You've got to have a lot of things wrong with you to get public housing.
Hardly anybody comes into the inner city estates unless they're on priority.
Right.
So unless
Which
it's.
means they're coming out of jail, they're coming out of hospital. They have to be find a place for them if they're coming out of jail. They have to be housed. They're coming out of a mental hospital. They have to be found somewhere to live. And the income gap, well, you need to be on benefits to get in. So it's a horrible collection.
It's hard, yeah. So for a lot of people, it's disadvantage.
And the disadvantage,
Yeah.
they're the only people who are actually getting into housing.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, that's.
Are you familiar with the workhouse policy in old Europe? About, so, you know, there were these welfare programs, this is like 150 years ago.
Yeah.
If you wanted to get welfare, you would have to go to the dingiest, dirtiest factory in the worst conditions. You would cut your life expectancy in half. You wouldn't go there unless you were really desperate.
Yes.
And that method works, maintaining power structures. In my opinion, the system has superficially changed in appearance, but the message has not changed. You don't go to welfare unless you're desperate. And this is the polar opposite of what, you know, a UBI kind of society would need to function. You know, it's the same principle. You don't go unless you're desperate because you don't get accepted unless you're desperate. They just change the burden from making the factory look awful, making the assessment process awful.
You can see there's parallels, can't you?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite effects in psychology is Campbell's law. Any social measure ultimately distorts what it measures. The point where it comes recognizable.
But you know, I think it really is correct that happiness is so important, you know, more important than not smoking or not drinking enough. I mean, there's other things that are important as well, but I don't know that many people know that.
They don't.
And I think that's something that really should be promoted, because if people tried to be happy, if they tried to say hello to other people, whatever,
Yes.
it would affect them. You know, it would grow, their confidence would grow, their happiness would grow, and their health would improve.
I'm so great.
I have a question. You said before, everyone can have 10 psychology sessions. I've heard this before.
Yeah.
And it's what, yeah, everyone can do it. Okay, so my question is, how do you get it and how do you find it?
You get a
As psychologist.
mental health care plan.
Well, see, I don't know that everybody even has a mental health care plan.
You
I
can
mean,
get one if you make it with a
I think
GP.
everyone can get one, like it's only if they assess it was needing it.
Yeah, you've got to show that there's a need for it.
So if you were depressed, like it's, well,
I guess you start with the GP,
Yeah,
get a referral.
yeah.
But one of the biggest problems is there ain't enough to go around. There's not enough psychologists to go around.
this is where this thing that you were talking about is with the head to health is making more psychologists to go around, and also this one I gave you, this one too, like
Yeah.
they're trying, it's true, there's been not enough, they're trying to increase it. The head to health, but you go online and go to head to health, or if you go.
I love that expression. If you go online.
Yeah.
A lot of these
Well,
people.
The health isn't, you can go online and have a look at stuff, but there's actually a number which I don't.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people, they need to come to the place like this
Yeah,
to do that.
that's so true. And it's not easy, is it? Like, who can go, not everyone's confident to go online. Yeah, good point.
But I mean, that's another way of being able to access, and a couple of these other programs we've talked about actually give you a series of sessions that you can actually have to be able to identify what sort of issues or what service or whatever you might need, which is part of if you think, I think something's not right, my well-being isn't what it should be, but I can't put my finger on what's wrong. These sort of services where they talk you through what some of the things are that you're experiencing, help you to actually clarify that and identify what that issue is.
Yeah.
And it may be a lot of, if you can get up to an hour off head to health, that's much better than what you're going to get off your doctor on sort of a 10-minute.
Yeah,
concept.
true. And you know, I wasn't just being critical about online, which is like, it's true, like I am upset that not everybody's online. But another interesting point is that if you are online, or you can get online, sometimes people find that's a really good way of having therapy, because they can be really anonymous and they can say how bad things really are. They might not be so positive they face to face. So some of the online programs, there's one called This Way Is Up, where if you're feeling depressed, you could go on This Way Is Up. And it's quite good, like it's quite a good program to do. Anyone can do that.
I think that's
Anyone can do those.
Anonymity is important, I think, for some people. They can look into things, go online and look into something without hanging their washing in the main street, really.
Yeah, I think the health site actually has a bit you can do yourself, or you can ring, or you can actually go into a centre and talk to someone. They give you sort of three main options.
yeah, I was just gonna say, I think people, there are some people who suffer in silence, like they just think, or like they feel just blah all the time, and they just go, well, this is normal, so they don't look for help because they just think that's what life is.
That's so true, and especially older people, they find older people particularly like this because they think, they also sometimes feel like, I better not say anything, because they can remember when they were young, someone that had a mental health problem was taken away, never to be seen again. So they're thinking, my God, I better not say anything because I don't want this to happen to me. So they just suffer in silence and think, it's just normal to be anxious like this, then they know every day. And it's not, they feel better help and put it down.
Yeah, or that they just think, oh, I'm just bored because I'm retired.
Yes,
And really, they're actually depressed,
yes,
you know, and so they're not gonna ring any of these numbers, that's
true,
that's
yes,
the-
true, that's a good, it's true.
Maybe they just need to. Have some
Okay, I think
Yes.
we've got through to 7:30. Thank you very much, Jane, for stimulating discussion. I think the challenge for us going forward, and it's also one for the city, is that how we actually deal with loneliness on places like the estate and across the city. How do we connect people better to the things that interest them that they might become involved in? I remember one of the community development people that was out here talking about you needed different duck calls for different ducks. Quite often we want all the ducks to be the same. I think the duck should be like us. We've got to try and find ways of being able to use different duck calls and let different ducks connect to different calls. It's one of the challenges.
This is a really cool place to have lots of things. Seems to be quite a lot of, but when we look at these things, there seems to be quite a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everything.
It's the connectivity bit to it, which is.
Yeah, getting to
quite
know
often
about, like,
Well, getting to know about, but also getting there for some people
yeah,
also.
yeah, transport, as you said, transport, is pretty important. Don't think things mention transport, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. I think at some point it's probably, given that Jane's in the hood,
Yeah.
it might be worthwhile her and Ellie, or her and I noticed that Grant, joined us, and maybe someone sitting down and just giving her a good idea of the sort of things that, this centre does.
I'd love that.
Will also mean that, she can sort of link things in and putting, her on the, email list for the, monthly activity sheet that goes out would also be useful.
Yeah, I would love that. So I'm very grateful to Benchwell. Love in Redfern and looking forward to seeing you around and I'll be saying hello because I'm like you and you. I'm a big believer in it. You can't help say hello. You know, take the pledge to me. Hello, Jane. Yes.